You know that hot streak you're looking for the Rangers to have all year? Well, it took till early September, but I think they've finally found it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the Rangers officially being on a heater and Jack Leiter's best start in the big leagues, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, the Rangers have won 4 straight series now, including this 4-game series against the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim with an impressive comeback win on Saturday, and then what should have been more of a blowout win on Sunday. And the Rangers are finally hitting that stride that they've been looking for all season. You know, Nathaniel Lowe, I think it was back in, maybe it was late July, that he said, well, we can't suck forever. And, well, I bemoaned that quote of, well, looked like they were going to for, after the All-Star break and for most of early August. But in late August, the Rangers played the White Sox, and they have won 10 games in their last 13. They are 14-6 since August 18th, and 10-3 since that series sweep against the White Sox. The Rangers have done a lot of things poorly this year, but hey, at least they didn't have a single loss to probably the worst team in MLB history. But this team is not where they thought they would be. I mean, the whole mantra of this season of just wait till those big guns come back in Scherzer and Mahle and DeGrom. And, well, here we are on September 9th. We have we have 20 days until the final regular season game of the year. And at this point, the Rangers have gotten a combined 52 innings from that triumvirate of Scherzer, Mahle, and DeGrom. And 11 starts. And they were fine starts. Nothing spectacular, but the offense that was one of the best in baseball just completely fell off a cliff. We all know that, and we all know that's why they are in this spot this year. I mean, the pitching staff mostly did its job. I mean, Eovaldi was about what you could expect. Heaney has been a workhorse, a really, really solid pitcher that deserves a lot more credit than I think he's gotten. Dunning kind of fell off a cliff this year, and missing those innings from Bradford, it's probably not as impactful as missing most of his season from Jacob deGrom or even a 40-year-old Max Scherzer. Still, Cody Bradford has been very, very solid in his 11 games so far this season. The Rangers just haven't quite been able to put it together, but I mean, down the stretch, the Rangers, you look at their playoff odds, and they're at, I believe, around 0.1% last I checked. Let's see, according to Baseball Reference this morning, a 0.2% chance to make the postseason, a less than 0.1% chance to win the World Series. I like those odds. Actually, that's a lie. I very much do not like those odds, but I do like their odds now better to finish with at least a 500 record. They're at 70 and 74. I mean, not that long ago, they were 10 games below 500. It seemed like it would be impossible for them to get even back to 500. You look at them in the AL West chase. The Houston Astros, had a really embarrassing game on Sunday Night Baseball. They got swept last week against the Reds, but they still ended up winning that series against the Diamondbacks. And even when the Rangers have been on this heater, they've gained, about 2 games or so in the AL West chase. Right now, the Rangers at 70 and 74 are 7.5 games back in the AL West. The Astros have a much more difficult schedule moving forward, but they also have the tiebreaker, so that's basically 8.5 games that the Rangers are back on the Astros, which doesn't seem super doable in a 3-week stretch. Not impossible, but not necessarily the odds you're looking for. And then you turn to the wild card race, and it gets a little more doable. I wouldn't say doable. I wouldn't say likely even, but the Rangers have 4 teams in between them and the final, 4 teams in between them before they get to the final playoff spot that is currently held by the Minnesota Twins. The Rangers are 6.5 games out of that final wild card spot. In front of them are the Tampa Bay Rays, the Boston Red Sox, the Seattle Mariners, and the Detroit Tigers, who sold off at the deadline. And so did the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're still ahead of the Rangers. Not exactly a point in Texas's favor. Thankfully, the Rangers have 7 games against the Mariners. You look at their schedule moving forward, and they have a whopping 2 games in their final, I believe, 20. Maybe we're at 18. My math is not mathing correctly right now. Let's see. 18. Yes, 18 games remaining, and only 2 of them are against teams currently in a playoff spot or really with logical playoff aspirations. They're ahead of the Blue Jays. They have 3 games against them. They have 7 against the Mariners, the team they play the most between now and the end of the season. And after this 2-game set with the Diamondbacks in Arizona, who the Diamondbacks have been the hottest team in baseball since the All-Star break, one of the best hitting teams in baseball. Actually, I think the best offense in baseball since the All-Star break. The Rangers have 2 games in the desert. This is going to be a fun little World Series rematch there, seeing Nate Eovaldi start a game in Arizona last time he did that. Well, we all remember how that turned out pretty well for us. But after these 2 games, these next 2 games, the 10th and the 11th, the Rangers do not face a team currently in a playoff spot. And it's technically wide open for them. I mean, technically, they can get there. I mean, winning that series against the Yankees seemed incredibly unlikely. The only game that the Rangers dropped in this series against the Angels was a Friday game where they had no actual starter, just a bullpen, a bulk day from Jose Urena, but the rest of the starts they had in this series, I mean, a great start by Cody Bradford, a really good start by Jack Leiter, and a pretty good start by Andrew Heaney, who finally got some run support for what feels like the first time maybe all year. Not quite, but just about the first time all year. But it's just a case of a little bit too little, too late. They don't have Corey Seager for the next, it's at least another 8-9 days, I think, on the IL before he can even be eligible to come off. If he's even ready to come off, dealing with that hip discomfort. The offense has been playing much better as of late. I mean, scoring 5 or more runs. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in their last 8 games. It's much better than a stretch than they had in a long, long time. A lot of hitters just finally finding their strides. And it may be frustrating. You may be in the camp of, oh, this team just needs to tank for draft position, blah, 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 blah. And, in other sports where the draft is more of a certainty, maybe that's the better case for them to do, because hopefully this is the last time they'll be, we thought that 2023 draft was going to be the last time they'd be in the draft lottery for a long time. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. It seems like the 2025 draft, which is not quite as star-studded even at the top than the last couple of drafts has been, but just playing better for the sake of playing better, having an above 500 record, especially since so much of this team is going to be back next year. Getting some confidence back in themselves, ending the year on a good note. It may just sound like flowers and sunshine pumping for the sake of flowers and sunshine pumping at the end of a year that has been very disappointing. Don't get it twisted. It's been incredibly disappointing, incredibly frustrating, and not good. It's been bad. It's been a bad year. But because so much of this team is returning next year, getting confidence back in these guys, giving these guys to be confident in themselves from now till the end of the season, just remembering, okay, we can come back next year, have a longer off season, get right, and not produce this kind of results next year it definitely gives you a little bit of room for optimism. But the thing that gave me the most reason for optimism this weekend was Jack Leiter's best start of the year. I'm going to tell you why it's so much better than the line, and the most encouraging part about it, right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. You heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we've got something a little different from you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel every single time. And if that's not enough, FanDuel's also got something special for our listeners this weekend. Be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all Sunday, the 8th of September pregame moneyline bets. So Profit Boosting will start Friday, September 6th. View your account to learn now more about it. The Rangers playoff odds, according to FanDuel, to make that last spot in the playoffs right now at plus 10,000. The teams ahead of them are, well, the Minnesota Twins, the Royals, Tigers. I mean, they have a lot of these teams that are already in playoff contention with better odds to finish and fall all the way down to that third wildcard spot than the Rangers. I mean, the Astros are ahead of them with these odds. Rays, Guardians, Orioles as well. So check it out. Go to FanDuel.com right now and check out FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. The Rangers head back to the desert to Arizona this week to take on the Diamondbacks on Tuesday. Nate Eovaldi versus Zach Gallen. A decisive Game 5 World Series rematch, 8:40 p.m. Central Time. You can catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, speaking of starting pitchers that have some pretty good strikeout stuff, Jack Leiter had his best start of his MLB career on Saturday. Came against the Angels. Not the most vaunted offense in the history of baseball, but still a team with some decent hitters, a major league lineup, and he looked like a major league caliber starting pitcher. Ended up with a line of 5 innings, 2 hits, 3 runs, all of them earned, one of them being, again, Andrew Chafin letting in an inherited runner, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, 1 homer, and he looked like the Jack Leiter that I really was so excited about in the draft because of 3 pitches. Not just the fastball, didn't throw a single cutter actually in this one. At one point he became just almost basically an exclusively four-seam fastball cutter pitcher because those are the only pitches that he was feeling confident in. But because of that last start against the Yankees, he threw his 2 best curveballs of the year, both of them to Aaron Judge. I think he's got a little bit more confidence in that curveball, and we saw it in that game on Saturday. He threw 86 pitches in total. 60% of those were four-seam fastballs. That's a little bit below where he has been. He has been very, very fastball reliant. But using the curveball and the slider, both 15 plus times, 20% of his pitches were the curveball. 17 curveballs to 15 sliders. He has never thrown the curveball this much. I don't think, even in AAA this year, I don't think he's had an outing where he threw the curveball this much. And it was very much working for him. 6 swings, half of those were swings and misses. The same 50% swing and miss rate on the slider as well. All 3 of his pitches that he was using the most also threw a couple of changeups that were pretty decent. Only got 1 swing. It was a swing and a miss. The other one was a ball, and he just looked much better. Using all 3 of those pitches, that was the thing that was the most tantalizing about Jack Leiter in college. Is that obviously he had the fastball that not just had the velocity, but also the very, very good shape on it. The command wasn't really, amazing, but the raw stuff was incredible because in college it seemed like his curveball was well ahead of where his slider was. The thought was maybe the slider could end up eventually being better. I think that has been the case so far in his major league career. He's felt a little bit more comfortable, even just in his pro career in general. He hasn't felt as comfortable with the curveball, hasn't been able to really throw it for called strikes. Got a couple of called strikes with that curveball, which set it up as a more devastating pitch to throw out of the zone to get the swings and misses. I mean, I said it after his last start, if he can throw that curveball in the zone early in counts to steal strikes, it's something that Cody Bradford has done this year. The curveball has been a much more effective weapon for Bradford, and it sets up the other stuff. It keeps hitters guessing, keeps them off balance. They can't just say, oh, I know this guy's going to throw me a fastball all the time. Don't care how good that fastball is. I know it's coming, and I can time it up and hit that thing out of the yard. But you have to respect the curveball and the slider as well. Not to mention the changeup, if he feels a little bit more comfortable to use it more than, 3% of the time. I don't think he needs to use it all that much, because eventually, when he was drafted, the thought was he could have potentially 3 double plus pitches, or 3 elite pitches: the fastball, curveball, and the slider. I mean, the thought was he'd have a double plus fastball, which has been it's been about the case. It's been about that level of elite. It doesn't look as elite because it's getting timed up, because he isn't trusting that other stuff. The other stuff isn't quite there as much. But when he's having this trust in the curveball, in the slider, and the four-seamer, and all of them are working in tandem, that is what makes Jack Leiter get that ceiling back of potential number 2 starter. I don't need to do the whole ace, not ace nonsense debate. I talked about that ad nauseum on Friday's show. I mean, Jack Leiter's just been a very polarizing person and a difficult person to evaluate. I mean, for Rangers fans, for Rangers media, for people who watch this team all the time, because there's a lot of different things you got to hold at the same time with Jack. I mean, Jack has immense potential. He has great bloodlines. He was a very heralded prospect. He has been a little unlucky with his defense. He has also been bad at times. He's also been very good at times. And it's hard to juggle all those things and hold them as truths at the same time. And also, he's the most hyped Rangers pitching prospect they've had in probably maybe since David Clyde, which is not a comparison that any pitching prospect, let alone a Rangers pitching prospect, wants. And he's also been a little babied by, the Rangers themselves, and by, people that are a little bit more on the homer side of trying to say, oh, well, none of this is Jack's fault. Jack has a 10 ERA all because Leody Taveras' defense sucks, or, the rest of this defense sucks, or, he's not getting calls, or blah, 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 blah. I mean, Jack would be the first one to say, no, that's not the case. I have pitched very badly at times, shown spurts at other times. It's just a very polarizing guy and difficult to evaluate because some of these things have, not gone his way. So many inherited runners have scored, and some of which, if you're a starting pitcher and you leave the game and there's a runner in scoring position with, less than 2 outs, I feel like most of the time, if that guy scores, then it feels just to add that to your line. But if you walk a guy, the leadoff batter of the inning, and then you get pulled, and then that batter ends up scoring on a wild pitch throwing error, and he advanced to second on, I believe, another wild pitch or a stolen base. I mean, it feels a little unjust to include that third run on Jack's line. But I mean, after that first inning, the first inning wasn't great for Jack. I mean, he absolutely hung a slider about as hung as it can get to the leadoff batter. Then he hit Zach Neto. But seeing him bounce back after suffering that, albeit self-inflicted, worries, difficulties, adversity, that's the word that I'm looking for. Self-inflicted adversity, but seeing him bounce back, as we've seen in other starts, he lets it get a little bit out of control. Just a little bit. I mean, Zach Neto is hit by a pitch, steals second, then advances to third on a wild pitch, and then scores on a sac fly. And those are the 2 runs that he allows while he's in there. And after that, he was nails. Strikes out Mickey Moniak, the very next batter. Strikes out O'Hoppe in the second. Allows a little weak single by Brandon Drury. Then gets a flyout and another strikeout. Comes out in the third, has a 1-2-3 inning with a couple of strikeouts. Then comes out in the fourth. Gets a perfect inning there as well. Comes out in the fifth. Allows just 1 base runner, which was a walk. And then gets a flyout, a lineout, and a strikeout. And looks darn good. I mean, he had 6 strikeouts in this one, but he had 20 swings and misses. That stuff was nasty. That's elite level stuff. It probably should have resulted in more than just 6 strikeouts in 5 innings, but 20 whiffs, that's a sign of having exceptional stuff. And the Rangers are going to give him every chance to start from now until the end of this season. Maybe it'll end up being more piggyback tandem starts. I'll talk a little bit more about that on tomorrow's show with the off day. I talk about what this rotation is going to look like from now till the end of the season, because there are 3 guys that are probably going to be added to this rotation at some point between now and the end of the year. And with 4 starters already in the rotation, a 7-man rotation would be a little bit difficult to handle. But I think overall, I was incredibly impressed with Jack Leiter's line. Not only that, but I'm glad that the Rangers offense was able to rally late in this one, even though he didn't get credited with the win, doesn't get credited with a loss. And the Rangers keep on stacking up these wins as they go on through the end of this season. But what does it mean, and how the heck are they doing this? And why do wins at this point in a team so far out of the race even matter? Talk about why that is. And the Rangers' top hitting prospect being promoted to Double-A. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Now, the Rangers keep winning games in September, which at the start of this year would have said, great, that's an awesome thing. The Rangers are hitting their stride right as they're heading towards a playoff push. That's great. But given where the Rangers are right now in the standings and their playoff odds being very astronomically low, you may think, is this just another 2014 situation? Well, it's not, because I don't think Bruce Bochy is going to resign tomorrow, and the Rangers are going to have some other bench coach or whoever be the manager from now till the end of the season, and then end up losing out on a number 1 overall draft pick. And instead of picking Alex Bregman, the Rangers end up picking Dylan Tate, and we all know how that went. There's no Alex Bregman level player in the draft this next year, I don't think. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Also, the Rangers weren't quite that level of horrible. The 2024 Chicago White Sox exist. So it's not quite a Don Wakamatsu 2014 situation, but it is a little bit similar in that in 2014, the Rangers had just made, well, not quite the playoffs, but game 163 plus in the last 4 seasons. They would end up making it back to the postseason for the next 2. And it was mainly that same core intact. And so the good thing about that stretch till the end of the season, it didn't end up really paying off for much. But for the Rangers right now, seeing these guys who have had truly very disappointing, upsetting seasons, who are under contract for several years to come, who theoretically, hopefully, you're penciling in that they are going to be part of the next Rangers, if not World Series winning team, then the Rangers' next playoff team, which you very much hope is in 2025 and also 2026, and from there on and therefore till forever. Not that all these guys are going to be part of the team forever, but you get my point. They've had frustrating seasons, and it's called into question of the long-term future of this team. I mean, the thing that I said was so great about this team after last season was that, you know, this offense, which was, you know, world beating for 2023. I'm like, you look at this offense and this is the offense. This is going to be the same team next year and the year after that. And it'll change a little bit in 2026 when a couple of these guys are free agents. But overall, this is basically going to be the team, the offense from now for the next, it looked like the next 3 seasons. And now, with the offensive fall off from everybody not named Josh Smith, you look at this team, you're like, oh no, this is the offense for the next few years. It is kind of turned on its head. And a lot of these guys that you thought their jobs were absolutely so safe, like there's no way they aren't at least starting and making big impacts and vying for all-star teams and silver sluggers and all that. The amount of jobs that are safe is in terms of everyday players for next year. Corey Seager's job is safe. That's not really a question. Marcus Simeon's job is safe, though him playing 162 every year in his mid to late 30s, I don't think is as likely. His job as the leadoff man, I think, will be in some doubt next year. I don't think it'll be in doubt to start the season, but if he has another year like this, offensively where he's just trying to get to be an average OPS guy, right now his OPS plus is at 99. He is below the 700 OPS mark. Not exactly what you're looking for. Still, about a 3.5 win season so far. 3.8 win season, because he's been the best defender at second base in Major League Baseball. Heck, one of the best defensive infielders in baseball this season, so he's still providing you some value there. But other than that, everyone else's job is pretty much up in question. I think Wyatt Langford is the most certain to be an everyday starter next year, but I don't think that's really going to change. Whether it's in left field or center field, who knows? We haven't seen very much of Leody Taveras down the stretch. I think that is a huge indicator that the Rangers are going to go with somebody else as their everyday center fielder next year. Whether that's Wyatt, whether that's Evan and he's healthy and he's getting opportunities against lefties, I think that is the hope. And you keep Wyatt out there in left field, let him spend some time in center field. But Adolis Garcia has had a disastrous season. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's salvaging it a bit at the end, but still not all that much. I mean, the power numbers have very much dropped off after a great April. He's had a couple of different months where you have some home run barrages for a 10-15 game stretch, but overall it's been deeply in question. I mean, as to if he's an everyday starter next year. Nathaniel Lowe is probably pretty safe at first base, but Jonah Heim has been abysmal offensively this year. I chalk that up to just being a catcher and being a catcher that had to catch so many games because your backup catcher for most of the year, Andrew Kisner, had a 13 OPS plus. But Jonah Heim has been one of the worst hitting everyday regulars in Major League Baseball this year. The power has just been pretty much gone. I mean, the at-bats have been bad, and even defensively he started to lapse a little bit, which is incredibly bizarre. I'm hoping this is just a one-off year with Heim, because that's the harder thing. That's the hardest thing to replace. I mean, the Rangers have some options for if Adolis Garcia keeps this fall off, if Leody Taveras isn't an everyday player, and the Rangers need to fill a hole in left field or right field or even DH next year. They've got some options. You got Wyatt Langford, who I feel pretty confident in having a very good second season in the big leagues. Evan Carter is a big mystery at this point, but the talent and the potential is clearly there. He's got all the talent and potential in the world. It's just about keeping him healthy and hoping that he can figure out how to hit lefties. But even if we have another season where Evan misses a lot of time with hopefully just some kind of injury, hopefully that's not the case. I'm not wishing for that, but if that is the case, that's why Josh Smith's emergence this year has been so big, and why I'm really excited to see Zeke Duran play hopefully a whole lot from now until the end of this season. I mean, over the last eight games that he's played, the last 14 days stretch, he's got an OPS north of 1,000. He's hitting 375 with an on-base of 423 and slugging 625. You move that back to the last 28 days, that's 12 games. 8 of those were starts, just 30 plate appearances, but still a 902 OPS since he got called back up from that stint in AAA where the Rangers were trying to get him right. 19 games there, 5 home runs, and 853 OPS for him down in AAA, including, I believe, 4, if not all 5 of those home runs came in the final 4 or 5 days of him being in AAA, of him very much finding it. I think he's an everyday potential big league regular. And I don't think it's that outlandish to say there's a chance where next year he could be better than Adolis Garcia. I'm hoping that's not the case. I don't know that Zeke's going to have a verging on 40 home run season like Adolis Garcia did last year. I don't think that's in his peak, but I mean, in terms of the athleticism, Adolis has fallen off defensively, and having those options in there to be your corner outfielders your outfield options next year, you got like 6 guys that you feel half decent about in Wyatt and Adolis and Evan Carter and Josh Smith and Zeke Duran and even Leody Taveras as well. That's a pretty decent depth options. And so seeing what Zeke Duran's got from now to the end of the year, I think is going to be important. But something else that's important for the rest of this year and next year is that the Rangers have promoted top hitting prospect Sebastian Walcott, the 18-year-old Bahamian shortstop, to Double-A Frisco. He spent the entire year this year in High A. He led the league with his 9 triples. He had 31 doubles, 10 home runs, a 786 OPS on the season. And if you throw out that abysmal first month, not even that abysmal because he's able to turn things around, he had an OPS north of 800 every month since June. 853 in June, 926 in July, 831 in August, and in 6 whole games, an 808 OPS in September. So if you want to go down there to Frisco for the playoffs, their regular season ends this week while they were on the road in Amarillo. But this is a huge sign, a huge vote of confidence in Sebastian Walcott. He's going to start next year as the everyday shortstop in Double-A as a teenager, something that has not been done in Frisco since a little guy you may remember who had a nice little retirement ceremony on Friday. That's right, Elvis freaking Andrus, actually. Scratch that. I'm pretty sure that was, I don't know if it was opening day that Jerickson Profar got there and was an everyday shortstop in Double-A, but he's putting himself in a class with those guys. He may struggle a little bit, but the fact that this 18-year-old is getting his way to Double-A makes me very, very excited for him and the nice season that he's had. He has very much earned this promotion. I'm very much looking forward to see what Sebastian Walcott can do for the final week of this regular season and with the Frisco Rough Riders in the Texas League playoffs. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.